Thank you so much, Shahab Saab, and all the KGC organization. We came all the way from New York. I heard all the speaker, who came from different places and background. Every one of them is talking about the Indian atrocities. They are talking about how the Indian, violating the human rights violation in the occupied Kashmir. Nobody is talking about the Azad Kashmir area. This gives a clear indication that the people living in Azad Kashmir side, they are living in a free life. And then I also, Beverly Hills, she also was talking about the Kashmir issue. I took one road from there. The difference between the occupied Kashmir and the Azad Kashmir, which is ruled by Pakistan somehow, there is no checkpost, there are no violations or atrocities being carried out within the Azad Kashmir area. And one more thing, it is not Pakistan which took this case to United Nations. This is the India which took to United Nations, and now United Nations have given two options. Either we go with Pakistan or we go with India. Now, once that is done, then the people of Kashmir, I think, they can decide about the future. Or if Mr. Raja Muzaffar Saab or Siddiqui Saab can highlight how that the third option will be adopted.
We have, I think, just briefly 30 seconds.
Yeah, as I said earlier, there is, we are talking about Azad Kashmir also. There is a United Nations Human Rights Council has given a report in which both Azad Kashmir, both the Pakistan controlled, occupied Kashmir or controlled or Azad Kashmir, whatever you call it, is part of that. There are 4 aspects of the human rights abuses which are mostly of the civil liberty nature, but the predominantly is in Indian part. The second question that you are saying is about that India and Pakistan should, Kashmiris should decide between India and Pakistan. That is not. That is valid for the British India, which you will go through, that Kashmir was never part of a British India. So the division on the communal basis is by the Britishers for the British India. And for your information, Kashmir was a paramountcy, and paramountcy always had direct contacts with the that time His Highness of Britain.
But what
so,
we will do
with
the United Nations resolution?
So the division or the United Nations resolutions is not our problem. It's problem for India and Pakistan. If they want to continue, let them go ahead. Kashmiris have nothing to do with that.
Thank you.
She wants, Dr. Romero wants to rephrase the question that he asked.
Yeah, I did not really understand what you're really coming from. So on one hand, you are saying that Azad Kashmiris have problem too, we have atrocities too, and why are we not included in I understood you want to be included in the conversation. I get that. And then on the other hand, you're also somehow, in some language of yours, very convinced that we have to decide between India and Pakistan. If there is an atrocity on the other side, then are you actually trying to say that Azad Kashmiris who are under atrocity actually want to merge with India? Is that what you said? I just heard that.
Yeah.
I heard that Azad Kashmiris who actually are under atrocious by Pakistan actually want to join India. That is why we should bring the United Nations resolutions on the top, because that gives only 2 options. So that means Azad Kashmir that has been taken today by Pakistan should be given a possibility of joining India.
If there was
is that your suggestion?
No. If there
Well,
was,
then why is the question of even atrocities?
Okay.
No, why is there even question
I
of
said
atrocities?
everybody.
It can be either 1 or 2, right?
No. I said everybody is talking about
Please
the.
understand a fact. That is, Kashmir is for Kashmiris. It's not about Pakistan and India. Please take out this word out of it. because once we talk about Pakistan and India, it's a word, it's a dispute between the two countries. Right now, it should be treated as a freedom fight. But my question is, instead of arguing, why don't we try to have, what they call it, in prominent international delegation, people like Dr. Fizar Khan and some other prominent people. Let them go, create a pressure, because India will deny them. So can we do something about that instead of arguing about some minor issues?
I think that's a wonderful conference you guys held. My question is that, just for my knowledge, that is there any women organization especially working for Kashmir causes in Washington DC or any part of America?
KGC, does any board member have answer to that question? Are there any, I'm coming. The question is, are there any women organization working towards the Kashmir cause?
There are, in Kashmir itself, there are a lot of Kashmiri young women who have created amazing non-governmental organizations and efforts that they're working for their own people. Today there is not necessarily a need for people from outside like us who to work with. We have enough number of efforts that are being done on board in Kashmir by people of Kashmir to help themselves out. What one can do is, and all of those are globally available, you can get on internet and you can find a lot of Kashmiri young women creating different types of efforts, whether it is their living or whether it is development of skills and stuff like that. So yeah, there are, but there is no US American based women's organization.
I just want to reiterate that we are into the last 10 minutes of our time because we have a deadline that we have to stop. So please keep your questions very precise, not the comments, just the question, please.
Okay, thank you very much.
Moin Saab would respond to the question that what is the legal strategy towards independent issue.
Well, first of all, I don't want to proclaim as if I'm a legal scholar, and I'm not also by any means a professional student of law. So I will not try to attempt to give you a legal strategy, right? That's number one. However, what I'll say is that the norm of the world, since the World War I and World War II, has been a process of decolonization. And that is why, since 1947, when India and Pakistan became two independent countries, we have had almost 97 more independent countries, give or take. That is the norm of the world. In fact, if you look at the past 2 decades and look at the history of the world, in Europe, in Asia and Africa, you will see that political issues have usually been settled by decolonizing a land or giving it independence, whether it's East Timor, whether it's Kosovo, whether it's Bosnia, or whether it's South Sudan. That is the norm of the world. Now, if you say that the only way to resolve the Kashmir issue is based on UN resolution, then you are basically holding that entire issue and the people hostage to that one resolution. In fact, that resolution has never been revisited since 1970s, when India and Pakistan signed a bilateral agreement called the Shimla Agreement, in which they said that they will now resolve or attempt to resolve this issue bilaterally. And that is when UN Security Council, even though the resolution may still be valid, but it has basically closed its own chapter. Now, going back to the legality question, United Nations Charter, not the United Nations resolution, but United Nations Charter, which is binding on all 200 countries in this world, which is the basis of international law, allows and permits nations and people to have unconditional self-determination, which is, in other words, is known as independence. And that is how the rest of the world has achieved its decolonization and independence. And I'll add this one last thing, given that we are a few meters away from White House and the US Congress. It is the government here that was instrumental in bringing out the independence of Bosnia and Kosovo, two Muslim majority nations in Europe. It was US here in 1995 in Dayton, Ohio, that agreed on a declaration and worked with the world powers to liberate Bosnia and Kosovo from Serbia and Yugoslavia. that is the basis on which the international world and current international norms work and exist. So to go back and say that a resolution which only restricts the options of the people of Kashmir to either India or Pakistan is the basis of resolving the issue, it also goes against the foreign policy of one of the states that talks about self-determination, because that self-determination cannot be restricted to only one or two options.
I'm talking about legitimacy of course of action under international law. That's you did not respond. What about
My friend, I will be very honest, blunt and clear. If you want to talk about United Nations resolutions, they have already been violated by India and by Pakistan.
how about Pakistan?
Pakistan did not withdraw their troops, number one. Number two, no, let me speak now. Now let me give
No
you,
cross-talk, please.
can you give me, I will give you an analogy. I'll give you
No
an analogy.
cross-talk, please. We're going to end this.
This is what Pakistan is basically misleading their own people and Kashmiris also, and which has been the core cause of what 1,200,000 people dead. Pakistan is talking about Simla agreement and asking Kashmiris to ask for right of self-determination. Pakistan is doing a Lahore agreement and asking us to talk about United Nations resolutions. Pakistan is talking about Agra Declaration and asking Kashmiris to stick to this United Nations resolutions, which is completely nonsense now. It carries no relevance in the international concept anymore. World changes, people change, laws change. Laws are made to break. One law is today, it's not going to be tomorrow. So it is lapsed, it has lost its relevance. So therefore, don't hang this sword on Kashmiri's necks. It is just killing us. We don't want to be slave of this narrative that goes nowhere. And let me give you another analogy. That is 13 states. I can give you an account of 13 states which were part of East Europe. They are today member states of United Nations. They have no United Nations resolutions whatsoever. There were 3 countries, 3 areas which had United Nations resolutions. Only East Timor got it. Rest of them are just begging for it and dying for it. And they will never realize it. That is the practical reality. Please don't drag us into this nonsense. This is good for Pakistan. I don't want to send Pakistan just to give up your call for United Nations resolutions. Let them hammer it, keep it, but don't tell us, don't make us slave of this.
No, you did not answer my question.
Respectfully, gentlemen, that you have a valid point. In previous historical perspective, which we may not agree, or some of them may not agree, we are going beyond almost 75 years of history. Hear me out loud and very clear. For the last 3 years, Saudi Arabia made a collaborative effort with Reliance Group, Ambani Group, to have an oil refinery kind of an initiative in Kashmir, $60 billion initiative. Last month, United Arab Emirates announced $25 billion in Kashmir. So we are talking about $85 billion altogether. Saudi Arabia is invisibly behind that. So when $85 billion, no legitimacy, no legal language, nothing, money talks. So my challenge to each one of you, if we are talking about peace through economic development and peace and prosperity for human developing factor in Kashmir, what is the issue? What is your problem? Why proxies have been so emotional and they have been hammering and stopping going forward out of box solution for this long standing? So people are suffering. We are staying in our 5-star hotel, somebody is paying for our lunches and dinners for years. Kashmir delegation in the name of Kashmir. What is going on? Don't you think Americans, intelligence or think tank, they're stupid? No. So we need to have a way out from this dilemma. We have to have created, so this was the whole idea of with respect, meeting of the minds to go forward, way forward? Or are we going to be stuck in the history and the geography and my paymasters, end of the game? Thank you, sir.